Disclosure.
Yeah.
Okay, I know everyone probably, right?
Well, I'm not disavowing that. It was an interview that was done almost maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I was in the Senate.
Right.
People that came forward to us, you know, some of these people were Navy pilots, admirals, generals, whatever. A little bit of selective editing, but it's okay because, you know, you're trying to sell a show there.
The solution is simple. Bring the Air Force leadership to the Hill and compel them to divulge the data Gerald Clapper referred to.
The Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, calls me, Mike, I need you to go through all of it. I need the team to go through all of NSA's holding all of its files, and I need everything that you have on UFOs. And I'm like, what, sir? The director, clearly there are phenomena occurring out there that both are visible and that we can't explain. I don't know what causes them. I don't know what they are. I don't know why.
Well, first, I think it is kind of, there is logic to the intelligence community addressing this. Whenever we witness such phenomenon that it is recorded and documented, the only reason for, to me, for classification would be if there's some sensitive method that data relating to so-called UFOs was collected. But other than that, I don't know why we haven't been more transparent about it in the past, and I'm part of that crime, I guess. And my former capacities were, you know, I didn't insist on more transparency with respect to this issue. I think it speaks to the breadth of the challenges that the intelligence community has, and specifically Gabriel. And I think this is why it's not a bad idea the intelligence community be in charge of gathering whatever data there is. When I served in the Air Force, there was an active program to track anomalous activities that we couldn't otherwise explain. Many of them connected with ranges out west, notably Area 51.
I can conclusively say that this was filmed by the government. I found out that they were there asking their set of questions, that there was literally a conga line of 3-letter agency people waiting to go into that interview suite to ask that being questions.
All right, we're looking at the interview suite at S4. It's kept dark for the comfort of the aliens. The figure who is just barely visible in the left foreground is the telepath, and behind the camera is a raked seating area for observers. But in fact, he's checking for hemorrhaging around the eye sockets and in the nasal cavity. I'm sorry. It's very hard for me to watch.
It has a weight of 16 grams with a size just less than 4 inches long. The Black Hornet UAV allows armed troops to spy potential threats. This small, remotely controlled rotorcraft helps to save the lives of frontline soldiers. This tiny UAV also offers intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance support to armed forces in mission-critical operations. The UAV gives access to remote locations and provides situational awareness on the battlefield. Black Hornet's development was initiated by Prox Dynamics AS of Norway in April 2008. Drone went through several test flights and all kinds of tests before entering into serial production phase in early 2012.
Pretty incredible, right? I mean, those aren't UFOs, folks. Those are drones. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to see you. Hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday. We're doing a little UFO news update show, so we're glad to have you here. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I always have to say that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just going to stop saying that. It's kind of silly. But we are going to cover a few issues today. As you can see, technology in the skies has gone absolutely crazy. And as we have seen technology go absolutely crazy, we have seen the reports of UFOs, UAPs in the skies ramp up. And a lot of the technology we were viewing there is at least 10 years old, some of it even older. Not to mention that typically the military likes to stay about 20 to 30 years ahead of where the civilian technology sector is at. So if that's what they were showing us 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we can imagine what they have now, and what they've had for a while that they probably haven't been sharing with us because it's an advantage. But there's a few things going on. We've seen an actual measured increase in reports of UFOs, UAPs, but it is most likely related to advancements in technology, more research, more study, more satellites, more prototypes, more drones. So what that tells me is that even a smaller percentage of what we would say was actually non-prosaic or no explanation for is ahead of us. In other words, I think a lot of these UFO, UAP, this influx that we're seeing, it doesn't mean that the end is nigh and there's an invasion coming in 2026, as the Daily Star suggests here. What it means is there's more stuff flying around. There's more reflections, there's more refractions, there's more junk in space. There's all kinds of things happening that are causing this jump in sightings. I don't think it means that there's an alien invasion. So we like to take a common sense approach here, and so I think that's what we're seeing. So you read a headline grabber like that, know that it's most likely clickbait. There's nobody I know of, any experts out there saying that we're facing invasion ahead of 2026, other than invasion of the movie theaters for Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day. What? I know I'm going to see that one. So yeah, you're all going to be okay. Now, this is an interesting one. While the phenomena may not be a phenomena, while it may be technology or drones, we are actually seeing a power plant in Wyoming get swarmed. Literally swarmed by drones. It's been going on for a while now. This is in Sweetwater. So basically fleets of drones, not just like 4 or 5, fleets of drones and suspected UFOs. So we've got both. Fleets of drones and suspected UFOs have been spotted hovering over a Wyoming power plant for more than a year. These reports have been going on for over a year. According to reports, officials with the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Office recorded scores of beaming, drone-like objects circling around the Red Desert and Jim Bridger power plant in Rock Springs over the last 13 months. So they didn't specify how many the Cowboy State Daily reported, and that's the local newspaper there, the Cowboy State. Sheriff John Grossnickel. Oh, Grossnickel. Well, that's a sheriff's last name for you. Sheriff Grossnickel was one of the first witnesses to the spectacle and last saw the mind-boggling formation on December 12th. He had his spokesperson, James Mower, tell the outlet. The fleets periodically congregate over the power plant in coordinated formations, Mower claimed. The sheriff's office hasn't been able to recover any of the suspected UFOs, telling the outlet they are far too high to shoot down. The law enforcement's outpost's exhaustive efforts to get the truth haven't yielded any results, even after Grossnickel enlisted help from Wyoming U.S. Representative Harris Hagman, who Mower claims saw the formation during a trip to the power plant. Hagman could not be reached for comment. Quote, "We've worked with everybody. We've done everything we can to figure out what they are, and nobody wants to give us any answers," Mower said. At first, spooked locals bombarded the sheriff's office with calls about the confounding area formation. Now, though, Mower said that people seem to have accepted it as the new normal. Mower noted that the objects, which he interchangeably referred to as drones and unidentified flying objects, have yet to pose a danger to the public or cause any damage to the power plant itself. It's like this phenomenon that continues to happen, but it's not causing any, issue that we have to deal with other than the presence of them, he told the outlet. The spokesperson promised the sheriff's office would certainly act accordingly if the drones posed an imminent harm. Meanwhile, Nyberg County Sheriff Randy Starkey told the Cowboy State Daily that residents of his community also reported mystery drone sightings over Lance Creek, more than 300 miles from the Jim Bridger power plant, starting in late October 24 and ending in early March. Starkey said he's just glad they're gone, according to the outlet. So this is very interesting. This is not something we're hearing a lot about on mainstream news. I know personally that's the first time I've heard this power company mentioned, or that drones were gathering in fleets over it. And it seems like they're not doing anything yet other than, I guess, just observing. But the fact that that's a new normal, that unidentified drones are hovering over a United States power plant, should be very concerning. And it's been going on for over a month now. It's a little worrisome. This picture you're looking at here, there was an Australian mining group that spotted a UFO. Workers from the Fortescue Metals Group Solomon Mine site in Western Australia saw this, what appeared to be an object hurtling through the sky. Since then, the group has shared photos of what they believe to be the object and are certain that it could be something more than just a comet. According to the Daily Mail, the workers had been on their way home from the work site at the mine on December 7th when the supposed sighting took place. At around 5 a.m., the group were driving back from the lab to catch a bus back to their lodgings in the Hammersley Ranges when they made the strange discovery. Eyewitnesses who saw the mysterious object as the sun began to rise said they were sure that it was something extraterrestrial. One person who saw the UFO explained the group thought the object was bizarre in its shape and kept watching on for any sudden changes. It's very interesting. And from this distance, this photo, this looks like like a triangle craft, almost. And they do get kind of a little bit better zoomed in image, and you can see it does really resemble a triangle craft. So fascinating stuff. You have a whole lot of people that saw it at the same time. You have multiple pictures, multiple witnesses. Very interesting. It'll be interesting to see if we get anything as far as like radar or other confirmed sightings, maybe other video, other photos, but that just looks astounding, doesn't it? Again, the problem is that could be 100% terrestrial, and it could not be extraterrestrial at all. We just simply don't know at this point. We just simply don't know. And it's really a bummer that, you know, since the 90s, people have been spotting these triangles. Before then, I think, if you really were to dig into it, I'm sure. Yet still no explanation, no leaks, no nothing. Talk about a well-kept secret. So again, this is a look at the actual power plant there in Sweetwater. The video I had going, that was more of a just kind of generic power plant looking video. I just want to make sure y'all got to see the actual plant that was getting accosted by these drones. It's pretty fascinating stuff. Now, this isn't super new, but since we're talking about drones and drone flaps and fleets of drones, if y'all remember the drone flap in New Jersey, there was the issue with some of them being identified as drones, some of them being identified as UFOs, just like we're hearing here in Sweetwater. Now, about a year, I want to say it was a little over a year after that drone flap in New Jersey, this gentleman came out and said, oh, those weird looking drones that are about the size of a car, those are mine. And posted some pictures of them. So I guess the thing is, like, if this is an advanced technology being tested, why is it not being tested in like a test range instead of in real world applications where you could put people in harm's way? And why power plants? That doesn't sound like something like we would do to ourselves. It just sounds very strange. It sounds like observation, and not necessarily from extraterrestrials. Probably observation from some not very good friends, right? Like some people that might want to get information on how our power supply works, which could maybe not potentially be a good thing. So yeah, so this gentleman said that the New Jersey drones were his, and I guess that was that. What's interesting is that a lot of those sightings in New Jersey, there were people saying that some of them were like shape-shifting, like changing between what looked like normal drones and then changing to something else. And I think that if that's not your eyes playing tricks on you because of the distance of the craft, I don't know how else you explain that. Because that just, it doesn't make any sense. And also, if they're non-terrestrial, why would they use FAA lights? Why wouldn't they just be midnight black or, predator clear, right? Like what? Why would they use green and red flashing FAA lights? So many things that just don't make sense. So let's say in Sweetwater, these are all drones. There's still cause for concern there, right? Like we still have fleets of drones that are constantly monitoring this power supply station in Wyoming, so much so that the citizens don't even really think about it anymore. Okay, next update in UFO news. We had a very interesting interview on American Alchemy with Chris Bledsoe. And we're just going to go ahead and play this.
Tim Taylor told your son, Ryan Bledsoe, that he was part of a secret time travel group in Nassau in the Bahamas, and that Thomas Townsend Brown was the president. And even then, maybe I would have dismissed it out of hand, but I had become this amateur historian of Townsend Brown, and he would always go to Nassau in the Bahamas. And then if you read Tim Taylor's biography, Launch Fever, he's in Nassau a lot. So that does kind of place them both in,
it's called
in
the
Nassau at some time.
It's called the Nassau Group.
Called the Nassau Group. And Chris Bledsoe had a lot of really interesting things to say in this interview, one of which I was talking with Steve Long about on my last podcast, which was, well, if you don't believe it, you're not going to see it. Sorry. You have to believe it. Otherwise, it's just not going to interact with you because it doesn't want to, cause ontological shock or whatever it may be. So understand that. If you go to a Chris Bledsoe orb show and you don't see any orbs, it's your fault because you didn't believe, because you weren't ready. Okay? Oh boy, what a crazy time to be alive, right? So I'm very concerned about the drones hanging over the power site. I'm almost more concerned with the fact that the alien interview video is making the rounds again. Like, are you kidding me? So Jon Stewart went on the Chris Ramsey show and said, without a doubt, 100%, the alien interview, Area 51 alien interview, was 100% government. He could say that for a fact, that it was a government-made film. Now, I could not watch long enough to see if he had any evidence of that. I'm going to say it's all hearsay. If I'm making a guess, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably heard a story from a guy who knew this other guy or some shit like that. The alien interview was a feature-length documentary, and it came out in 97 on VHS by Rocket Pictures. And you can see it's a really grainy, dim lit room. It features a gray alien that's supposed to have these health issues, who suddenly suffers a medical event as a person who can perform telepathy is communicating with it. It's having a problem responding. And then people enter with flashlights to assist and check on it. The Victor interview, as it's referred to, it doesn't have a universally accepted confession. So there's actually no verifiable provenance trail. Now, Jon Stewart told us what he believes to be true, and perhaps it is true. But I think it's pretty clear watching that video, you're watching like a Jim Henson Fraggle Rock kind of thing. I don't know how you could think that that's real. But some things to note: there is no chain of custody. The source stays anonymous. There's no verifiable provenance trail that an independent party can audit. It's actually embedded inside an entertainment-style documentary package. So you have reenactments, you have narrative framing, and then you have so-called experts. So it wasn't released as raw evidentiary media with verifiable documentation. We even have a gentleman who supposedly didn't want his identity being known, so blurred out his own identity. Strange Universe devoted an episode to it. The VHS release sits in the same 90s mystery TV ecosystem where sensational claims were common at the time. So it doesn't prove that that's fake on its own, but it's the core reason that serious investigators classify it as unproven or non-evidentiary. So we really, the only provenance we have on it at this point is what Jon Stewart told us, which I don't know about you all, but I could not sit through that interview. I couldn't do it. He's a very nice gentleman. Seems very sincere and very passionate about what he's saying, but let's see. Steve's got some info for us. I love it when Steve has some info for us. He suspects it was the same video the Brazilian doctor was shown in '96. Of course, now he claims he was the one who actually worked. Okay, and I am guessing you're referring to the doctor that was recently in the updated version of Moment of Contact with James Fox, where he interviews this doctor, and this doctor says, "Yep, I was actually there in Barhania. I was in the operating room, or I don't remember if it was the operating room or like an ICU bed, but he was in the room with the alien who, I believe his testimony was, although the alien was in control of everything, although he was in control of everything, he still needed our help. That it was beautiful. It was like an angel." And then James Fox cries because the other guy's crying, and they all cry, and it actually seemed very sincere. But again, it's just a guy saying a thing. The alien autopsy. Yeah, I do believe there is some stuff came up as far as evidence on the alien autopsy video. But the story that Jon Stewart, came out with on the Ramsey show, I can't say whether I believe that or not. You'd have to watch the interview and decide whether you believe what Jon Stewart is saying or not. I believe he believes it, but I don't know what I don't know what kind of evidentiary value that holds if somebody, just believes what they're saying. Let's see. Susan thinks plasma's involved, huh? So Susan says vortex technology. She's responding to Ron because now it's not an episode unless Ron comments on the dielectric vortex technology by Ronald Frederick Sykes that has the fastest rate of induction and it delivers superior levitation for your personal spacecraft. Very true. So yes, vortex technology, Susan. I don't know that involves plasma. You'll have to shoot Ron a message on that one. Plasma is becoming kind of a popular subject. There's a lot of studies going on about plasma. There's a lot of new technologies coming out with plasma. There's a lot of new research going on with plasma. So it's a very exciting field right now because of some of the things we're learning we can do to manipulate it and, at the cellular level pretty much. Some pretty cool stuff with plasma going on right now, including what may be one day an answer to our energy problems. Clean energy could involve plasma. Yes, I did see that, Susan. That really was a bummer. I was covering the Cleveland shooting that night when that story happened live on the show. I was like, oh my God. And then we found out it was the same person that shot those students that went up and shot that professor. So yeah, it was really, really sad stuff. Really, Steve, I can see it with Kit Green. But Calm Keller, he seems more scientific minded to me, but that's crazy. They thought it was real. Wow. Pretty interesting stuff. So Calm Keller, who was employee number 1 at OSAP, and Kit Green, who wrote oh no, I'm sorry. That was Eric Davis that wrote the UAP injury report, but Kit Green, who's been involved in a lot of UAP and UFO reports and allegedly with the CIA, for them to believe something like that's pretty interesting. Hey, you know what? If you see a dino beaver, then really, what can they throw at you that surprises you from that point, right? Not a lot. Not a lot. Oh boy. Okay. Now, because I want to do all that I can, a little bit on every episode, to clarify ATIP and OSAP and where this confusion happened, George Knapp just did a new interview that, like this, I think it just dropped yesterday, maybe the day before, speaking about Jim Lukatsky and why can't I think of his first name? Mr. Bigelow. Robert Bigelow. Jim Lukatsky and Robert Bigelow's relationship. Oh, Susan, that's it. You're out of here. We can't have you promoting other podcasts on here. I'm just kidding. So Susan says, on Higher Journeys podcast with Jay Widener interview regarding Temple's book, A New Science of Haven. Wow, plasma beings. Yeah, there's a lot of folks that are kind of theorizing that, putting that forward. I am excited to see where the science goes on that. I think it'll be pretty interesting. Okay, so this is our kind of weekly, bi-weekly clarification on never, Susan. We love you here. On ATIP, OSAP with George Knapp. So let's take a look at this. And this should be pretty interesting, I would think.
Okay, today's show, we're going to talk, as promised, we're going to talk about Dr. Jim Lukatsky and some of the stuff that he's done. This is more recent stuff that's happened right here, and the connection with Robert Bigelow. Now, Robert, you introduced me, not personally, but at least I found out who Robert Bigelow was through you and your stories here on 8 News Now. Aerospace engineer, made a lot of money from the hotel industry and Love Space, and Skinwalker Ranch is tied in. How does all that come together?
Robert Bigelow is a friend of mine. He's the only Bigelow billionaire that I know and consider a friend. And I had met him when we first started out doing the Bob Lazar story. He was one of the first people to call after that series, UFOs, The Best Evidence, aired in 1989. And we struck up a friendship. And he started hanging out with Lazar. They had a little company together for a while. We became friends, and he had a lifelong interest in UFOs. So he had some experiences.
So, did anybody else know that Bigelow hung out with Bob Lazar? I must be under-researched because I did not know that there is any connection between Bob Lazar and Bob Bigelow.
In his family, his grandparents had experiences, and he had started to dish out money to UFO investigators so they could continue the research. Some of the really prominent names of that time back in the late 80s and early 90s. And in 1996, he created something called NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, put together this world-class science advisory board. It was physicists and philosophers and scientists of all kind, and they were to be the advisory group for NIDS, which was looking at UFOs and consciousness issues. Do we survive physical death? Eventually, for NIDS, the UFO topic kind of took over, but Bigelow became, over time, the single largest financier of UFO research in the history of the world. I mean, tens of millions of dollars. And one of the big purchases he made in 1996 was Skinwalker Ranch. I'd been reading about it. The Uinta Basin had been a hotbed of UFO activity for as long as humans had lived in that part of northeastern Utah. Native Americans, Mormon settlers, the oil industry, just about everybody who lived there had seen a UFO or someone else in their family had seen one. And Bob Bigelow read a little bit about it, flew to the ranch, met the family that lived there. They stayed there only 20 months. They had planned to live on that property for the rest of their lives. It was the ideal property they'd always sought, but within 20 months, they were done because of all the weird stuff that happened. So he bought the ranch. He installed a team of scientists with cameras and sensor systems on the property. And within a short period of time, they saw not only UFOs, but...
That's fantastic. So, Steve, I'm going to have to go back and watch that episode. Steve says, Bigelow discussed his relationship with Bob Lazar, the work he hired Bob to do, and his firing Bob on the Joe Rogan show. Boy, I really want to watch that episode because I wonder, I know Joe's kind of a believer in Bob, so I'm curious how he took that.
But a lot of really strange phenomena. In 2000, I had been pestering Robert Bigelow and Colin Kelleher, who was his chief of operations, chief investigator, pestering him for a long time. Hey, let me go to this ranch. I've been seeing this stuff about what's going on, and I'd really like to go to that property. And I think in the year 2000, I made my first visit. And then the following year, I came back and brought a cameraman. Eric Sorensen was my photog for the I-Team back then. We went to the property, shot some stuff, and interviews with people who'd been there and seen strange things, with the plan of eventually producing a documentary. A couple of years and many visits later, Matt Adams and I had been there a number of times. Bigelow sort of nixed the idea of a documentary. He was worried that if all the notorious stuff that happened at the ranch got out and the location was known, that he'd be flooded with UFO conspiracy folks and tourists and partiers. And I had tried to assure him that's not going to be the case, but it's exactly what happened later. I put the documentary on hold, and instead wrote a book co-authored with Colin Kelleher. In fact, today, 20 years ago today, that book first came out. And among the folks who read it were people
It's just a coincidence I'm on here doing this interview on the book's anniversary.
at the Defense Intelligence Agency. Dr. Jim Lukatsky picked it up. He sees this stuff about holes in the sky that had opened and craft are coming in and out of that hole, and strange creatures and UFOs of every description that have been seen not only on the ranch but all over the basin, all over that particular circle of property, which is kind of like an island amid it's an island of private property inside and surrounded by this huge Indian reservation, the Ouray and Uinta Basin, Ouray and Uinta Reservation.
Northeast Utah.
Yeah.
It's way up there in
Right up
Northeast
there, yeah.
Utah.
Roosevelt, Bernal, Ballard,
Yes.
Fort Duchesne, that area.
Beautiful area,
Yeah.
by the way.
Gorgeous.
And we've got, you'll see some video of it here in some of the interviews that we've got. But it's, we got to take a quick break, but it's interesting. He was aerospace. He started out with the aerospace interest. Certainly, we saw some of the videos. Who knew that was in real quick, we got to go to break, but who knew that was in North Las Vegas? He was building all this aerospace stuff.
Well, we did because
You did,
he allowed
yes.
us to document it every step of the way.
Yeah.
We were there at every step and got video of each step of the process and what he was doing. He's got dozens and dozens of patents that
Yeah, you're 100% right on there, Steve. In fact, like, I don't watch the show religiously or anything. My wife really likes it, so I'll watch it with her because she knows I'm into, UFOs and stuff. So it's like something we can watch together. So I'll watch it occasionally. But yes, it's interesting that the people that originally owned the ranch still live there, and they go and they tend to the herd and they help with the animals and they help get things set up and torn down. And so yeah, they haven't gone anywhere. And Steve says their names were changed in the book so that no one could fact check. Well, I mean, they say it on Skinwalker Ranch on the show, I think. I'm pretty sure they say like, oh, these people have been here since, day one, blah, blah, blah. But I do know of other people that lived in that valley, not necessarily Skinwalker Ranch, who also claim some strange activity. And it is interesting that it goes back so far. It goes back the legends and the myth, and does that lend to it being a psychological thing, a psyche thing, a hysteria type of thing, or does that lend it to being a real phenomenon? I don't know, but it is interesting. I mean, that's why I got a show on it, right?
that he created for that had big plans. He has 3 spacecraft up in the air, by the way. One of them is attached to the ISS right now as we speak.
Okay. Dr. Jim Lukatsky is going to, we're going to have your exclusive interview with him coming up where he talks, disclosure is coming. Disclosure seems to be one of the things the government for years has been sheltering, but now they want to disclose more. They still haven't disclosed enough, but we'll have that when we come back. Mystery Wire with George Knapp returns.
Pretty solid edit, like 8 cuts of the gimbal and an old picture of George Knapp.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Putting all these pieces together is sort of interesting to do, and it gets a little complicated. I get that, but from what I understand now, a new book is out by Dr. Jim Lukatsky, who writes about new insights. It's called Secret Government Programs that were secret at one time.
Oh, so the new book came out. Interesting. So this is where he promises even more information that Dopser had cleared for him to release.
Time, maybe not secret to you, but to everybody else they were. But he was inspired by you in the book that you wrote on Skinwalker Ranch, and he understood the importance of this and said, whoa, let's go to the, do I have this right? Let's go to the feds and let's basically got a few senators together, bipartisan, to say, let's build a program to find out the threat potential.
Dr. Lukatsky was a career intelligence analyst. He was a specialist. He was literally a rocket scientist for the DIA. And he studied potential threats of enemy rocket systems that were being constructed. Smart guy, brilliant engineer, PhD, of course. And he read the book. He read Hunt for the Skinwalker. Here's these stories about holes in the sky, unknown craft coming in and out. And he also saw all the paranormal activity at the ranch as a potential threat. Maybe it's a byproduct of whatever these machines are that are flying around in the sky. Maybe it's a byproduct or it's done on purpose. So he read the book. He passed it on to a colleague of his at DIA, Jay Stratton, who went on to bigger and better things in the UFO world, and again, a career intelligence guy. Stratton was in Iraq as he read it. He was in the green zone while the Iraq war was going on and thought, this is pretty interesting. So Lukatsky writes to Robert Bigelow, says, hey, can I go visit this ranch? Bigelow says, sure, come to Las Vegas. I'll take you there myself, which he did. Lukatsky's on the property, this 480-acre ranch, for less than an hour. And within that time period, he has an experience. He has his own paranormal experience. Sitting inside the ranch house with the two caretakers of the property, he sees something really weird in the house, floating in the air a couple of feet away from himself. He doesn't say anything at the time till he gets off the ranch, and then he tells Bigelow what he saw, this real weird, kind of like tubular bells on an old Mike Oldfield album, a figure like that, glowing inside the house. He goes back to D.C., he writes up an outline for a possible UFO investigation, a program that becomes OSAP, and then he takes that proposal to his bosses, who said, yeah, go for it. He meets with Senator Harry Reid, who called a meeting with two other colleagues, bipartisan a committee of three who oversaw a lot of the black budget programs, and they said, yeah, let's do it. Let's get it some money. They came up with $22 million worth of new money, $22 million that would fund the program for 2 years. They gave a contract to Robert Bigelow, and they were off and running. Within a matter of a number of weeks, under Colin Kelleher and Jim Lukatsky, they had hired 50 full-time investigators, ex-cops, ex-intelligence guys, got them all top secret security clearances and sent them to work. And one of the places that was a focus of that work was this ranch we're seeing pictures of. It was not the...
Now, did you all make a little note of that? Colm Kellner, Jim Lukatsky, 50 of the top people in their field, scientists and whatnot. You know what name you didn't hear? Not a once? Luis Elizondo. But he was running a tip, Gabe. Was he?
Not the only focus. Skinwalker Ranch was a unique opportunity to sort of have a living laboratory, but their focus was a much larger cross-section of UFO studies around the world. They created the world's largest UFO database with more than 240,000 cases. They went to Brazil and Canada and the UK and got their UFO files and put it into those databases. They were the first to study the Tic Tac. That very first case that was studied by OSAP was what's now known as maybe the most important and influential UFO case of all time, the Tic Tac case, where U.S. Navy pilots and U.S. Navy sensor systems encountered this thing off the coast of Southern California, and then they were off and running.
Yeah, David Fravor has testified of what he saw there, certainly. But looking at weapon systems was important to him, and that's the OSAP. The acronym is they're looking for weapon systems.
And Susan, the point that, you know, it really could have been you scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of an agreement where they donated to Reid's campaign, Bigelow did, and then they also ended up getting the BATS contract. So it's a very valid point you're making there for sure.
And trying to do a threat assessment. You did an exclusive interview over Zoom with Dr. Lukatsky, and here's a portion of that where he talks about the threat potential there, and he went there to Skinwalker Ranch to find out what that threat potential could possibly be.
Because I could see from my organization the threat potential, and we weren't covering many of the things you were observing. Strange creatures. I mean, think of inducing these, what might be called illusions by some people, into an enemy force. We wanted to learn what can be weaponized here. And basically that was our job at DIA.
When you hear there's people seeing holes in the sky and craft coming in and out, that must have got your attention too.
Yes, and it still does in regard to, well, I'll mention it now, the follow-on program, Kona Blue, because that seems to imply a physical effect. And we've seen it elsewhere. It was reported near the ranch. It was reported by the ranch manager at the time. It's been seen elsewhere. It's not a unique phenomenon, but it seems to be more physical in nature.
In later shows, we're going to hear about some of the specifics of what those ranch managers saw. Fascinating stuff. And I'm sitting here just living in Las Vegas, having no idea that all these federal workers are here in Las Vegas running this program, going back and forth to Utah to the Skinwalker Ranch. You had a pretty good idea. You knew what was happening at the time, but couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
Am I right?
That was hard. It was hard to not say anything, but that was the deal. I mean, I was allowed to know that the program was up and running. I didn't know all the details because so much of it was classified, but because of a friendship with Bigelow, with Colm Kelleher, with Dr. Eric Davis, and more importantly with Harry Reid, I would get enough bits and pieces here and there to know that it was really some exciting stuff they were doing. And it was big. It was a worldwide study. I was asked twice to join it. I was asked twice to get a security clearance, and they promised that if I got a clearance, they could tell me a lot more. I always figured, look, if I sign a national security oath, I'll never be able to report this. And even though I have to wait maybe years and years, which is how it ended up being, before I can release any of it, eventually I plan to report it, as long as it didn't violate any promises I had made to Bigelow and to the other people involved with it. But eventually we were able to report a heck of a lot of it. And now more of that information is coming out through the efforts of Dr. Colm Kelleher and Jim Lakatsky. The book that you showed there is the latest book. The first one that was written, and I was a part co-author of that, was Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, kind of a follow-up to Hunt for the Skinwalker, which is our original book about the ranch. And this is the new one, Inside the U.S. Government Covert UFO Program, New Insights, in which Dr. Lakatsky reveals more from the documents that were submitted to DIA. Now, if you file a FOIA request today and ask DIA for the files from the OSAP program, they'll say, we don't have any. We can't find them. So either they were burned or disposed of in the years since the program ended, or they've been stashed somewhere in such a deep, dark hole that they really genuinely can't find them. Whatever, though, the only direct information we have about what OSAP did and what it accomplished is from Dr. Lakatsky. The first book at Skinwalkers at the Pentagon took 14 months to get approval from what's called the DOPSR process. It took about half that time to get the second book approved, and this one took about 7 months or so as well.
Okay, we're going to talk about the government's role in this. Certainly you played a role in what happened.
So there was some weird shit that came out of some of those reports at Skinwalker, and you can see them here. This is like the 6 craziest ones that I've listed. You might have seen these before, but the first one was from 1994, Bulletproof Wolf. A car-sized placid wolf. Let members pet it. Then seized a calf. 6 shots fired from a .357 and a .30-06 at point-blank range left it unfazed. Its tracks later stopped in soft mud as it vanished. Tissue recovered from the hide yielded DNA described as non-identifiable. That's crazy, right? Now, the thing is like what I talked to Steve about yesterday or earlier is that, well, how scientific are these reports? Because if it's just testimony we're relying on, then that's all that it is. It's just someone telling a story. But in this case, they say they actually did a DNA test which yielded non-identifiable on the hide. That's pretty crazy. But again, non-identifiable on the hide leaves a lot up for speculation. Number 2, daylight calf mutilation. An 84-pound newborn tagged 45 minutes earlier was found bloodless, femur wrenched from the socket, and organs cored out with surgical precision, while NIDS scientists stood just a field away. No tracks, no predation signs, and no struggle sounds. Intelligent blue orbs and the hitchhiker effect, 1995 to present. And a lot of us have heard about these, right? The softball-sized spheres of bubbling blue light maneuvered through trees, induced overwhelming fear, and most puzzling, seemed to follow visitors home. Subsequent poltergeist-like activity and a cluster of autoimmune illnesses in family members led OSAP doctors to test an infectious agent model for UAP exposure. That's pretty interesting. I mean, if they're testing an infectious agent model, would mean that they are working on developing like a protocol for if you had contact with a UAP in regards to your health. Wow. An infrared portal and crawling humanoid. 2002, night vision cameras caught a glowing oval suspended over a ridge. A 7-foot dark figure pulled itself out of the aperture, dropped to the ground, and disappeared before the team could reach the spot. The window then snapped shut without a sound. An invisible wall of force. Mid-2000s, a security officer on patrol hit a brick wall in thin air, quote-unquote. Suffered acute nausea and confusion, then recovered once he backed away. Instruments showed no physical barrier, leaving researchers to speculate on localized energy fields or even cloaking. And when I talked with Steve about the basal ganglia brain injury, a visiting physicist felt skull pressure near the ranch's hotspot. Subsequent MRI scans revealed sudden inflammation deep in the basal ganglia. Damage, doctors said, resembled exposure to high-energy radiation, yet no environmental source was found. Similar cases have since been logged. Now, those are the bullet points. Of course, the details we'd actually have to go through the report to get to. And if y'all are interested in that, we could definitely do a show on that. Seeing what actual facts we got, because I think that's kind of up for speculation at this point.
What happened here with some of the senators and how they wanted to keep things confidential and how difficult it is to keep things confidential nowadays, and how people want disclosure. That's what people are asking for now is disclosure. The government's becoming more transparent, but perhaps not enough. When we return here to Mystery Wire with George Knapp.
I always think it's curious that people are waiting for disclosure from the government. Does the government have to tell you that it's real?
Okay, I remember them here.
Tell you that it's not real? Do you put that much faith in the government? I remember Eric Mitchell said to me one time, disclosure is personal. There's enough information out there now where we've had disclosure. They've shown us what they know, for the most part. And it's a matter of what you think it is and what you're prepared to believe or not believe. Or maybe belief shouldn't be in the subject at all.
Here in town, because I've been here long enough, as have you certainly. But let's talk about the role that Congress played in this. And you've got 3 senators now involved. Senator Harry Reid, who we both knew well, Daniel Inouye from Hawaii, a Democrat, and then also a Republican, Ted Stevens from Alaska, who all got together in bipartisan fashion to say, let's have some disclosure on this, because people, quite frankly, were begging for it, wanted it to happen. It's never enough. It's still not enough to this day, but at least, and here's what Dr. Lukasky told you about how he was trying to get disclosure and these senators were involved.
We don't want to see my name in the Washington Post while the contract is running. Afterwards, it's fine because the project was very successful, but we were always, I would say, running pretty fast. Bob Bigelow and his program manager, Dr. Colin Kelleher, ran the program very quickly. We had clearances at the highest level processed in, this is hard to believe, in 30 days. It was just amazing how quickly that was up and running. I was asked to condense briefings to the higher ups. So they always got the straight scoop. They knew what was going on. They didn't themselves have any external contact except for those in charge of monitoring funds, because Congress was very insistent. You are spending this money and you're spending it on what you're supposed to be spending it on. And DIA followed the straight, narrow path and successfully completed the project in a record time.
Okay, so from what I understand, this money, $22 million earmarked for this, and it took those senators to find special funds, didn't they? Had to keep them away from.
Right, it was new
Nobody
money.
take it from us.
Right, it was new money. Nobody knew about it. Jim Lukasky says he'd be sitting in the DIA, and the person, the desk next to him, didn't know. The only people who knew at DIA were the 2 top administrators, and the.
God, and you know what I think when I hear this? I think if they would have just given Avi Loeb a little bit of that money. I kid. Okay. So I didn't have a lot to get into this episode. I just wanted to give us some brief updates. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I do have a health issue. I'm a diabetic, and my blood sugar is low, and that's why you sometimes hear my watch beeping at me, because I can't eat a ton, and so that means my blood sugar gets really low. At any rate, that's what's happening right now. So I'm going to have to close up the live stream, but I will be back soon. Maybe if I'm feeling up to it later, maybe tomorrow. Hopefully you got a little bit of something out of this episode, some news updates. I think it's good that we have George Knapp at least clarifying the OSAP question. the ATIP and OSAP confusion is starting to become clearer and clearer every day. And I think as Elizondo digs himself a deeper hole, it's going to be easier for Knapp to kind of separate himself from that. And honestly, I think he kind of has been for a while now. So at any rate, thank you all for hanging out. As always, I appreciate all of your insight. I appreciate all of your company. And you have a blessed rest of your day. And with that, I'll peace out.